Welcome to Ascension with V, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey with their unique experiences. Amanda, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Amanda Dahl, and I have a practice called Dahl Holistic Health, where I work with people who maybe they're in their own ascension process, or maybe they're stuck either in their career, their health, relationships, and we just kind of dive into it and see where you're at and get you to where you want to be.
All right. So I like to focus on the kind of things that you typically deal with your clients or your own experience with the ascension process and how it was that you came to start this business after going through your own process of ascension.
Yeah, so it started back in 2013. Myself, my husband, and my son, we were all diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we had been trying to get diagnosed for 18 years. We knew something was wrong. We had just been bouncing around from specialist to specialist. And when we finally found out what was going on, we were finding that conventional medicine was really not serving us. The treatments weren't working. It was very hard for me to treat because the conventional treatments are antibiotics, and I'm allergic to so many of them that they really didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
So when I finally found things that worked, they were really, it started out, because we tend to focus on the physical first when we are
Right.
sick. That's what we're conditioned to do. So I was doing, supplements and things like that. And then I was introduced to energy medicine, and, Reiki was first. And then it eventually led to biomagnetic therapy and all these different modalities. And it made me realize, like, wow, healing is so much more than just conventional medicine, supplementation. There's so much more to it. And that's really what led me down that path. So where things started to shift was there was a friend of mine who was a naturopathic doctor who I didn't really know her at the time, but she was watching my journey, right? We never know who's watching what we're
Right.
going through. And she was watching my journey, and I had gone to learn Reiki. And it was the day of my level 2 attunement. And she knew enough about Reiki to know that once somebody is a level 2, if they want to, they can start working with people and doing Reiki with people. And she contacted me that night and she said, I've been watching your journey. I know what's been helping you, and I know that, you're great, sharing information with other people. I have my own clients who are stuck. They need to level up. They need help that I think that you can give them. So I wasn't really setting out to start a practice.
Right.
I was learning Reiki to help my family because I knew how much it was helping us to have a Reiki practitioner. But I wanted to kind of super boost it and get Reiki a little more often than we were able, than was financially within reach for us. And then that happened, and I started working first with people pretty much with just chronic health conditions like we had. But
Right.
then word of mouth started to spread, and, well, can you help me with this? I've been stuck in my career. Can you help me with this? I've been, stuck. I'm in this relationship. Maybe it's not a right fit for me anymore. Just all these people started coming to me for different things. And, I'm here to serve. So I'm like, of course, let's see what's going on. And I find that, and you'll understand this language, the universe brings the right people. It really
Right.
does. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you feel like had you not gone through the struggles with your health and trying to figure out what was going on with you, would it not have do you think that shaped you into doing what you're doing now, the experiences with your health and wanting to serve in the manner that you're serving now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I really felt Lyme disease is a very, very difficult and complex condition to
Right.
have. And I felt like I knew I had all the pieces of the puzzle, It was just a matter of figuring out how to put it together, right?
Right.
And I was able to figure that out. And I documented along the way what we did, what the things were that helped, what the different effects were of different things that we had tried. And when I started working with other people, I realized that I had really written a blueprint, and
Yes.
not absolutely not saying that my way was the way,
Right.
but I had all of my insights kind of mapped out. So when I was working with people, I was able to guide them and give them feedback, and share my experience. And that's one of the top reasons why people worked with me, because they were like, oh, I know that you know what I've been through, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but I find I find that everybody's experience is very unique,
Right.
and when we're working, on whatever the person's concern is in their life, when we're working on that, I find that there is no one size fits all.
Right.
So it's very much like recalibrating people to understand that they are their healer. They have all the information.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of them leaning back in to their intuition, to what feels right for them. Because I
Mhm.
find that when people are healing, they are very often looking outside of themselves for
Yes.
answers,
Yes.
right? They
Yes.
want somebody to just tell them what to do to
What to
heal,
do. Yes,
right?
exactly. Yes.
And I find, yes, that's absolutely helpful. However,
Yeah.
when something doesn't sit right, I find that sometimes people have a hard time giving that pushback and saying, this doesn't feel right. What other options are there?
Hmm.
And I am very often that person that says, well, you have lots of options.
Why do you feel like that is? Why do you feel like that's a thing that people struggle with by saying like, "Hey, I don't feel like this is right," because I
Mm,
mean, me as well going through the healthcare horrors as I call it,
yeah.
I went through that, having a difficult time advocating for myself in the
Hmm.
beginning and saying, "Hey, I don't think this is right." What do you feel like is the common denominator for us when we experience these difficulties saying, hey, this isn't right for me.
Right.
I'm not comfortable with this. I don't like that. What is that?
I feel like there's a couple things going on. I feel like, first of all, we're afraid. We're
Yeah,
scared. We don't
yeah,
feel good. We think, oh, is this what life is now?
right,
Is this all I have to look forward to now? So there's a lot of fear. A lot of things in our lives are due to fear factor.
right.
But I also feel that in our society, especially
Mhm.
here in the United States,
Yeah,
um, as we're growing up, doctors are very much revered. You're
yeah.
sick, you go to the doctor. Do as the doctor says, right?
And that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah,
And, you know, doctors are human beings. Well, I believe that we're souls and we're human. There's
right.
two sides of the same coin. But,
Absolutely.
there is a human factor to a doctor too. And I feel like society puts them on a pedestal and treats them as a sort of a god.
Like God,
Yes.
God themselves.
Yes.
Even the nurses, like the nurses will be like, "Oh hell,"
Yes.
like,
It's very much that way, and here I am saying it's okay to question the doctor.
right,
And it doesn't have to turn into a negative experience either. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying, what happens if this doesn't work? What is the option beyond this? And letting them know, like, hey, I want to partner in this.
hmm,
I find a lot of times it's just the language that we use with a doctor,
right.
to remind them that we're human and we need these things. So I think it's a combination. I think there's a lot of fear, and I think it's just society. We put the doctors on a pedestal and we think, well, they must know best.
That,
you
that,
know
yeah.
and what I'm here telling people is, you can take that information
Hmm.
and mesh it together with how you feel and what you already know,
Right.
and you can alchemize that and make your own perfect blend of healing. And
Right.
that's what I like to work on with people.
Yeah. And do you, I think, and also with that, there is this thing of when you're trying to express yourself to, especially with a doctor, a lot of times there's this, when you say, I'd like to try a more holistic approach, sometimes the doctors, in my experience, have been like, why would you want to do that? When you say, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to remove this medicine, can we try taking this medicine away?
Mm-hmm.
And is there any other modalities that I can try to use
Mm-hmm.
for my healing? And then it becomes this, like, almost like a trigger point for the doctor of being like, why would you want to do that? Why
Yes,
are you trying? Do you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
do.
wh-
Yeah.
what is like
Well, I
what is
think
that?
for them, I think for the doctor, when they go to medical school, and I'm not talking about naturopaths, I'm talking about MDs, right? Medical
Yeah,
doctors. Um, they are very much, they are taught, you know, square peg,
right,
square hole,
right,
right? And everything has to fit into that hole.
right,
And the thing is that very oftentimes there's so much more going on,
right,
and they're not taught about alternative medicine. They're
mhm.
just kind of taught like alternative medicine bad, not peer reviewed,
Yes,
and it's like, and we all know that there are multiple reasons why like herbs aren't studied, because
right.
there's no money in it, right?
This,
Like if we
this,
start getting down to, and this isn't conspiracy, this is
this
just
is
fact,
facts. This
right?
is fact.
We're not going to get natural healing modalities studied. We're not going to get big peer reviewed studies
Yeah,
on herbs, because in the end, there's not a company that is going to be able to make huge profit from that. Right
right.
now, at least, you cannot um, put a patent on just the
Healing.
regular plant, right? If they
Right,
modify it and tweak it and do all sorts of things to it, they can, but you can't, nobody can put a patent on dandelion, right? So there's
right,
nobody that's
right.
going to make big money off of it. So when you go to your doctor,
Mhm.
they are taught about things that are studied. And the whole reason why the pharmaceutical industry was created was because about 100 years ago when it was started, they knew the value of plant medicine because that's what they used. However, they were looking for something that would have a reproducible result,
Mhm.
the same every time. Because what happens with herbs, right, and with plant medicine is one year, oh, the crop is fantastic. It's
Right,
potent, it's great. But what happens if, that year, well, maybe there was an insect that ravaged the crop and we didn't get enough? Or what happens if there was a drought and we
right,
don't get the same yield?
right,
So that's why they created pharmaceuticals. Well, then it became, of course, a money making venture. So then we could put studies to it. And, it just kind of led to the kind of mess that we have
we're
going
in.
on
That
now.
we're in. Yes.
Um, so, with doctors, they give a lot of pushback. And in fairness, there are a lot of things out there that are completely unregulated, or they're from different countries that people are getting sick from it, that sort of thing.
Right.
um, so doctors, they give a lot of pushback when we're asking about alternative medicine or alternative modalities, because they don't learn about that in med school. They're just taught, stay away from that, it's bad, there's no studies, therefore there's no validity.
Right. Right.
So those of us who want to say, well, hey, I'm willing to do some of these things, but I'd also like to do some other things too.
Mhm.
They aren't always super knowledgeable about all of those things because that's not their wheelhouse, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
can be tricky for those of us who are trying to heal.
Right. Yes. Trying to
Yeah.
bridge the gap between
Yes.
both worlds, it seems like.
Yes.
It. What are some of the most challenging cases or scenarios that you deal with most frequently in your practice with your holistic healing?
Mm. When people don't give things enough time.
Oh man, it's that instant gratification factor. I
Yes,
Everybody wants this, like, okay, so I talked to you this day, and so tomorrow, why am I not feeling better? I
right.
did the thing for 24 hours, so why is it not magically better? What's happening?
Yeah, they're
You
looking
know?
for the magic moment. I think that's the
Yes.
hardest thing. And it's like, yes, miracles happen,
But
but that's a God thing, and
yeah,
I'm not God.
it's not me, man. Like
Right?
I'm just
Exactly. So,
do
I,
they get mad at you? Do they have you felt that? Like
no,
the kind of like, well, why am I not instantly better kind
I
of
don't
thing?
feel people get mad at me, but I think that people just get frustrated
Frustrated.
because,
Yes.
a lot of times by the time people get to me, they've been going through things for a long time, usually years,
Yes.
and then they start working with me, and sometimes it might feel a little bit toxic positivity in the beginning because I'm like, look, I'm telling you, I know that you can. Maybe you're not going to heal 100%, right? But you're going to
Right.
feel a whole lot better. We've just got to combine some things. We've got to do some mindset work. All this different stuff.
Yes.
Um, so I don't find that people normally get mad at me, but they get frustrated
Frustrated.
because we are in a culture of instant
Instant.
gratification, right? You order something online, it's here in a day or two. You want a particular food, put in an app and it's delivered to your house. Everything is instant.
Instant.
And
Yeah.
this kind of work is not
It's
instant. It's a slow and steady. And even with like protocols that we're taking for physical wellness, so supplements, different things
right.
like that, I tell people like this isn't going to be an instant thing. There's
Hmm.
a whole chemistry set inside your body, and that chemistry resets itself from the inside out. So the last place you're going to see it is like externally, and
Outward.
right, there's a whole lot going on inside, but you've got to give it time to work. And of
Yeah.
course there's always those financial barriers that
Right.
sometimes make it not within reach for people to do things quite the way that they want. And I know for me, I was definitely in that situation. It's healing, especially if you're healing as naturally as possible. It's not covered by insurances and different things like that. So,
Right.
very often we're going out of pocket. So those are some of the challenges that we're looking at when we're trying to heal from things for sure.
Right. And do you have a particular mode of healing method that you prefer the most? Or like, do you have a favorite thing that you like
Hmm.
working with the most?
Yeah, I love when people allow me to tap into their energy a little bit and kind of see what's going on.
Right.
Reiki tends to be the way that I do that, but I have so many different modalities. So if somebody's not comfortable with one, surely we can find another. But we have, as our human, we have blind spots within ourselves that we can't see or we can't access.
Hmm.
So when somebody can, have the vulnerability to say, okay, I'm going to allow you to tap into my energy and take a look and see what's going on. It's a beautiful thing for somebody to be able to do that.
Yes.
And then I can go in there and I can see, okay, well, I see that there's some stagnant energy in your throat energy center, or you've got a little bit of a blockage going on down in your stomach, like different things that are going on, to give them insights that maybe they've never had before. But when we start talking about what it means,
Hmm.
they're having light bulb moments like, oh, that makes sense
Right.
because, I'm constipated all the time, or, I'm clearing my throat all the time. And, these sorts of things, like we start looking at those insights, and those are things that can be real game changers for people because it's not typically something that, like, your doctor's not necessarily going to find that, right? Even your
Right.
naturopath isn't
Right.
necessarily going to
Right.
find that. So I love the energy
Work.
medicine side of things. And, and I have some people who they are definitely people of faith. And sometimes they're a little bit nervous about all of this. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, this isn't against your faith. There's no religious affiliation to the things that I do.
That
So
that
that it's come one, come all. Everybody's welcome. And if somebody's not comfortable with this stuff, that's okay. I'm just not your gal, right?
that
Like, there's
right.
somebody else out there that can help you.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I would say probably Reiki is like one of my favorite
Reiki's
things
your
because I
top.
think it can make a lot of impact for people. I'm not necessarily like standard Reiki. Like
So what does that
I,
mean? Like break that down for me. What is standard Reiki? What is your way of Reiki and what's standard Reiki?
yeah, so people are used to, if you have a Reiki session, most people, that maybe they've had the experience in person, right? And the
Right.
person lays their hands and they're going down the body, and but I am very in tune with the body. I know all of the systems of the body, the organs, the bones, the ligament, everything. Like, I know all the different parts of the body. So I'm looking at it almost like an energy surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, oh, I'm going to help you feel relaxed. It's, I'm going to help you feel relaxed, but we're also going to tweeze out, like, where in your
Extract.
body. Yeah. Like, we're
So
going
you're
to,
an extractor.
I am, I
Yeah.
am,
Yeah.
and I have found things inside of people that they're like, I had no idea this was going on, but it makes sense based on the symptoms that I'm having. And, I've had these tests and I've had these scans and all these things are going on and nobody's been able to figure it out. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ooh,
Oh,
let
well,
me in.
so
Um,
let me dabble.
yeah, let me
Just
take a look and see.
let me see.
Yeah, and sometimes, the things that we're finding are, maybe it's not something physical at all.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
it's
it's
something, that's emotional, that's really kind of taken hold in there. We haven't been able to process that energy. And that doesn't mean that we have to go, you know, diving through all sorts of trauma.
right.
It just might mean, okay, this is something that has happened to you. We're gonna move that energy out with your permission. Everything I do is permission. If I see something
Right.
when I'm working on someone that looks like it might be a little bit bigger,
Hmm.
um, I don't necessarily just pull things out. I
Right.
talk to them and I say, this is what I'm seeing. And sometimes it's something that, might need more than one session
Right.
to extract it, because we want to make sure that a person isn't feeling untethered, lost,
After, yes,
kind of like, what's happening? I don't
what's
feel
going on?
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I never
Yeah.
want somebody to feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Did you did you know when you started this that this is I'm a spiritual extractor? Like, did you know that was a thing prior to doing this? Or like when you started doing the Reiki, did you just discover like, oh my gosh, this is a gift that I have. I'm able to do this? Was
Yeah.
it
It
was
was
just
more
like
of
a
that.
yeah?
Yeah. When I was a child,
Hmm.
I was just telling, I had with my human design person, we were talking about this the other day, because I always have felt different from
Hmm.
people.
Yes.
I don't look at the world the same way. I don't
Same.
process information the same way.
Same.
Um, and I've always felt this way. And like, when I was a child, there were things that I just knew. And then I
Yeah.
realized as I got older that, oh, people don't just know this kind of stuff.
Right.
And, but I was seeing spirit,
Mhm.
feeling, feeling just energy around me.
Right.
And then, what happens to a lot of kids is you realize, like, oh, this is something that people don't talk about.
Exactly. Right.
So I just kind of quietly lived with it for a while. And, when I got older, my husband and I, we ended up living in a house that had a lot of spirit in it. And they were
Yeah.
not happy that we were there. And
Yeah.
then we realized, like, wow, we are really in tune to some pretty big energy. But when I learned Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
that really opened up that channel very, very wide.
Okay.
And even like the I studied under two Reiki masters together, and they were like, you're different than most people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would walk in, and they, like, people would be like, whoa, like, I just had a lot of energy with me
Energy.
all the
Yes.
time. People really like having sessions with me because sometimes their loved ones come through, and I don't advertise this. I don't consider myself a medium, but I give a safe space if somebody wants to give a message, or I
Right.
pass messages to people. Like, all sorts of gifts have come along with having my channel opened up. So it's
Right.
been very exciting and beautiful. And the more I'm leaning into it, the more people I'm helping.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me feel not so different in
Different.
this
Different
world.
and
Like, I'm
weird.
embracing the different,
That.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your, you mentioned the human design thing. There's two things that I want to touch on. One
Yeah.
about your husband and how you guys met and how you guys talked about the your gifts and things of that nature. But the
Hmm.
first thing is the human design thing. I didn't even know that you were into that. That was something that you delved dove dove into.
Yeah.
And tell me about your human design. What are you?
I'm a manifesting generator.
Oh, I am the projector seer.
Uh-huh. Um,
So
I'm
how did
very new to it. I
same,
I
same, literally
literally,
same
like, I was seeing people. I've kind of known about it being out there,
about
and a number of years ago, I pulled my chart. You can put all your
right.
information and do your chart.
Yes.
And I was like, manifesting generator. I have no idea what that means.
What does that mean?
Right.
Yes.
And then, I got on Threads, and I did the thing that I think a lot of us did. I got on Threads about a year ago, played on it, and then it went dead for a while. And then a few months ago, it seemed like everybody went to Threads, and I was kind of playing around. I saw people talking about human design,
Hmm.
and there was there's a reader on there who I I kept on seeing her things, and it was really resonating with me. So I booked a session, and I just did a session with her a few days ago. And she gave me a whole report. We sat and talked for about an hour and a half about all these things, human design, and it was. I think the number one word that I came out of that session was validated. Like, it was like, oh, these things
Exactly.
all make
This is
sense.
me. Right.
This is me. And
Yeah.
but she just taught me, like, some different ways to kind of embrace it, and
Yeah.
make it work a little bit better in my life, because
Right.
I'm a I guess they call them multi hyphenate. Like, I'm always doing many projects.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. Are you the, because I think you're one of the two that have a constant stream of energy from your sacral. You have a defined sacral. So
Yes.
you always have like a constant flow of energy where you can
Constant.
do your multiple things, your hands in multiple different projects. Is
Hmm.
that you?
That
Like
is
to
me. That is
see
me. And the thing that's so hard about that is we are taught, focus on one thing at a
one
time.
thing. You just do one thing. You
I
can only
can't
do
do
one thing.
that.
No.
I
Yeah.
can't do
No.
that. Like,
No.
I've got my finger in a lot of different pies, right?
Yes.
And what my human design reading taught me was, like, I don't have to stop doing all my different
No.
things. Like, whatever I want to work on at the moment, work on that at the
Work with
moment,
it.
and then move on to something else. And I think that's why, through the years, I think I offer like 9 different modalities at this point. But
Yes.
and there are things that I learned that I was just like,
Mm,
and like, and
yeah.
I'm always telling people, like, you might learn something and maybe it's really delicious at the moment, but then
But
you're like,
then,
I don't really like this anymore. Well, you know what? Then just let it go. Just
right.
because you learn something doesn't mean that you have to hold on to it for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yes.
So, I definitely have gone through that. And the things that I really like and that I offer
Hmm.
are things that were so impactful for me that I held on to them, and I still use them continuously in
Okay.
my own life. But I do not do human design readings. I'm just a happy
You
client
just,
of someone else. Yeah,
yeah.
but I find that it's very, very validating and a
It is
really fun way to go even deeper on
into
the
the
things
self.
about, yeah, on
Into the
myself.
self.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you also a person that likes to just introspect and figure out like why am I the way that I am? Why do I do the things that I do? How does this work with me?
Yes,
Yeah. And
all the time. Are you the
do you
same?
yes,
Yeah.
do you find in your work that a lot of people aren't that way? They don't want to like they do whatever they can to like not not know who
Sometimes.
they, do you know what I'm talking about? Where they don't
Yes.
want to like by working like nine different jobs or constantly staying in like really bad relationships so that they don't have to spend time alone to get to know
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Exactly.
Do you know
Yes,
what I'm
I
talking about?
do. I do. I do. Yeah.
It's so apparently this is not a normal thing where people like just want to constantly introspect and know thyself.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, I think it's a, I think it's a privilege to be able to do so,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
think in our society, we have to, people have to hustle to
Yeah.
survive,
Yeah.
multiple revenue streams and, just all these different things. And I think it's important for people to know about me. Like, I know that I'm speaking from a place of privilege, that I was able to take these classes, that I was able to pay out of pocket for treatments and do all of these different things, because I understand that that is not within reach for
Right.
everybody.
Right.
um, I work every day to try to make a change when it comes to that. Like, every year I speak to Congress about, more funding for, especially Lyme disease, because that's what got me into this whole world. But,
Right.
we need more funding, we need more education, we need better testing, those sorts of things, because when you have all those things in place, then you've got a basis for the medical community to
Right.
hold on to. Then insurance will start covering. Like, there's all these dominoes that
That has to.
have to go in a certain order.
Right.
So, I use my energy and my privilege to be able to try to bring action to those who don't have that same privilege that I do at this point. So,
Right.
yeah, so that's where I come from with a
Right.
lot of my work.
But I mean, even you had mentioned even when you were young though, like you knew you were different. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like this was
yeah.
I think some of us are that's just how we came into the world, like
Mm-hmm.
just insatiably wanting to know how
Mm-hmm.
things work, why we are how we are. But in general, you know, it's a as you said, like it's a privilege kind of. It's
It
a
is to have the
you know,
time to explore it and
right,
to kind of lean into that energy.
right.
Some people don't want to know.
At all.
It
At
may,
all.
right, and that may be because of their belief system, right? Like,
Mm,
what's going on culturally.
yeah.
There are, so, like Reiki, let's just take Reiki for example.
Yeah.
In the Mormon faith,
Hmm.
women are not allowed to be Reiki healers, right? In the Catholic faith, people are not supposed to be receiving Reiki at all. Now, if I can just tell you how many Catholics I work with, right? Because I think
Right.
that there is, um, those sorts of things are the things that will give people resistance to doing this kind of work.
Right.
Um, and maybe they just don't believe in it. And that is, any of these things are okay, right?
Right.
Like, that's okay. I'm not everybody's
Right. Cup of
cup of
tea.
tea.
Yeah.
But, for the people that want to lean into this, that want to, explore more, my husband and I, we both work with a lot of people that are having crisis of faith,
Hmm.
or, maybe, they've had a number of experiences happen to them that they don't know who to talk to about it. It feels strange. It feels different. We've
Hmm.
worked with people who they know that there is dark energy stuck to them. They
Yes.
need help, and like that stuff for me, I'm like, bring it.
Let's
It,
do it.
yeah, it
Same.
doesn't,
Same.
none of it scares me. None of it baffles me. None of it shocks me. Like, I'm not afraid that, this energy is going to get stuck to me because I'm so protected that I'm like, it's okay.
It's fine.
But,
Right.
I don't consider anybody crazy or they're nuts. Like, none
And
of that. There's
yeah,
absolutely no judgment with that, but they're getting that kind of judgment if they
that
talk about it,
that's
you know?
something that we are so up against all the time. Like, and
Yes.
especially when people, and I think what it is, I mentioned this a couple of days ago, is that because a lot of time people experience those tower moments,
Mm-hmm.
those, your spiritual awakening typically comes after you've had some super traumatic
Yes.
situation, a near death experience, a really bad health issue, and then like on the 3D level, the doctors would say, "Oh, because this is what happened, you're having like a manic episode."
Oh,
Right? It's just
mm-hmm.
it's oh, so these changes started happening around the time that you experienced this great traumatic issue. You're just having a manic episode. Here's some
Mm-hmm.
pills,
Right. Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
You're
and
having anxiety.
it's just you're just having anxiety. You just need this. What's a depressive moment? You're just having
Right.
this and that, and it's
You're right.
this. But this is, you know what I'm saying? This is a biggest reason why a lot of not only just people don't want to come forward and talk about what they've been experiencing, and they just mask and suppress it, or they're drinking it down, or they're
Mm-hmm.
drugging it down,
Mm-hmm.
and why people who are gifted, right, who have these abilities don't want to talk about it, is because, again, both sides of the coin gets you the kind of the same result in old 3D world interaction,
Yes. Yeah.
where you're immediately, they're like, we need to put you in the nearest padded room with a straitjacket,
Yes, it's true.
and it's, I think we're slowly coming out of that, very broad stigma or assumption, but like it's bad,
It
it's a
is.
lot. It has traumatized and set us so far back. I mean, albeit purposely, I, I,
Mm-hmm.
I would I would say, but it's bad.
It is. I do think that one of the things, when we were all under lockdown at the
Hmm.
beginning of this COVID crisis, I think it gave people time to lean into some of these feelings. And, everybody was just sitting on Instagram all day,
Yeah.
right? Or TikTok if you wanted to dance. At the time, TikTok was mainly dancing. But,
Yes.
I saw a lot of language coming out, like the language of trauma, the language of
Yeah.
the limbic system. People were starting to learn this language and they were starting to learn about energy work and to lean into these parts of themselves that they were like, wow. Because
Oh,
I feel like people move so fast, right? Because we were talking earlier about, you got to hustle, you got to have multiple revenue streams, you know, everything is expensive and there's always a lot going on. And when all of a sudden we couldn't go to work,
hmm.
unless our frontline workers and, grocery
Right.
stores, thank goodness. But, a lot of people were sitting at home in a trauma state.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here comes that language, here comes, dealing with things that happened and how do we help that? And I mean, I I went from like a regular, comfortably sized practice in person in San Diego
Right.
to booming with a wait list, working
Whoa.
virtually with people online
Yeah.
during lockdown,
Hmm.
because people, they had time.
Hmm.
Um, I think that people had some people had a little bit more resource financially, and like people were working on their health.
Right.
Now I find that we're kind of, not that COVID is over by a long shot, but people are kind of getting back to life. And now I'm finding there's a whole another wave of, what's happening to me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people are
Yeah.
waking up from kind of the trauma state that was created from a
Yes.
few years ago. And now we've got this whole wave of energy that's coming through that, people are, oh, I need to work on that. I need to process that. And some people that, oh, I have the language of
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. Maybe they are somebody who's very gifted and can
Right.
tap into other energies and other levels and ascension and all these different things, but they're trying to make their way in this very human, fast-paced
World.
world.
Yes.
And they need people to, I'm sure you're seeing it on threads too, like, where are my spiritual peeps at? Where are my
Yes.
people that are in the ascension process? Where are you at? Right?
Yes.
And we're all having these conversations, but it's like there's a need for
For
connection
us. Yeah.
for us,
For us. Yes.
yeah.
It's strange. It's really strange. Like, I'm sure you see it as well, but like the, as you kind of mentioned, the shift that's taking place of like old world and new world
Hmm.
colliding.
Yes.
And the us's of the world are now having to kind of lead and guide everyone that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
that had the first wave of, okay, it was this trauma, and now they're like being like, wait a minute, kind of coming out of the matrix
Hmm.
and being like, what do I do now? and and
Right.
and now us who have, who are in this practice, in this field, we're having to be like, okay, this is what's happening. It's
Hmm.
okay, everybody calm down. Like, it's all
Right.
right,
Right.
and having to, carry the lantern for
Yeah.
everyone through the darkness into new earth. It's really interesting to see, to be a
Hmm.
part of, but it's a whole sh- shift that's
Hmm.
taking place.
It really
Very
is.
interesting.
Yeah. And it can
Yeah,
feel scary,
it is.
you know, like it can
Yes.
feel really scary. And, my kind of starting point with people is, let go of some of the noise. There's a
Yeah.
lot of noise out there of people telling us what we should do, what we should feel, how we should practice, what we should take,
Yes.
this path that
Yes.
we're all supposed to be on. And I tell people, like, maybe you're not on a path, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're riding a wave, maybe
Correct.
you're skiing down a mountain. Like, you make your life what you want it to
What
be.
you wanted.
And
Yes.
what convention tells us that is what things are supposed to be, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. And for people like me, like you, who are in this world, it doesn't work that way. Like, for me,
No.
it's yeah, there's a path, but my path tends to be very connected to
Yes.
spirituality. And I want to just say, like, spirituality in my world is very, very different from organized religion.
That that
Okay.
I'm so glad you said this,
Yeah.
because yes.
It,
Yes.
because people will say, well, I don't like spirituality. And I'm like, we're all part of this
We're all
collective, right?
correct.
Energy is energy,
Right.
and we're all part of that energy. And
Right.
I've gone through times in my life where I didn't want to be connected to that energy at all. And now I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I like to be connected, because that's what I can tune into, that and be like, ooh, this is what's going on in the collective, right?
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people that they feel that energy, but they don't understand what it is. Like, oh, I've just felt so awful, and everybody around me just seems to feel so awful. And it's like, well, that's the energy that's in the
Of the
collective.
collective.
And,
Right.
we're that energy. I describe it like, if you observe a flock of birds, right?
Yes.
Humans are in a flock as well. It's
Yes.
just we're so spread out that it's
Yeah.
harder to see, but we are also moving like a flock of birds
Right.
does.
Right.
And when something's going on with a group of people, it ripples through the whole collective,
Correct.
whether geographically you are close or
Mm-hmm.
not. it
Mm-hmm.
is it is affecting us somehow.
Right.
um, so those are the things that I just help people with, like, to know, like, yeah, you're connected, and this is
Yes.
how you can, if you need time
Mm-hmm.
outside of all of that, like, you've really got to tune into yourself first and
Right.
foremost, right? Your
Right.
energy is key. And if
Mm-hmm.
you can help your own energy to thrive and, you know, be creative and do all of the things that you want to do, then what that does is it beams out, that good energy beams to
To
the
the
rest of the
collective.
collective. And like, that's why we can affect each other
Correct.
so much when we're
Correct.
around each other.
But like I've also noticed that a lot of people, and I went through this with my own process because again, I was on so many medications for
Yeah.
so long in my life, and I essentially couldn't feel anything. Like I was
Mm.
just literally like I couldn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was a point in time where I didn't know who I was, what I was, or what my own homeostasis, just ground zero
Mm-hmm.
energy is like, and just 2 years ago was when I like fully was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this me? And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of other people, whether it's just because they just have just been disconnected in general, or because of, my kind of situation from being on a bunch of medications or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that's been doling down their gifts and abilities. But I think a lot of people are in this thing of where they don't know what their own just their energy feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
And do you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
do you experience that? Have you experienced that with some people where they're just like, I don't know what me feels like.
Yeah, I experienced it myself.
Oh,
So when I was born, I had a hole in my heart. I had my
oh.
first open heart surgery when I was 4 years old.
What is
And
the
it's
age for?
what's that?
I said, what is the age for? That's something same. 4 years old was a thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to explore that. Like, where are we developmentally at age 4?
Yes.
Because that's the stuff I'm always curious about, like what's going on.
Same.
Um, but I didn't know, like, on top of not emotionally not feeling like everybody else seemed to feel,
Right.
physically I never felt like anybody else.
Right.
Like, I was like, oh, people are running, and they're running around and feeling good and feeling happy and playing tag and doing all these different things. And like, I was winded and sitting on the porch and being like, I'll catch you guys after, like, it's
I'll see you
not
later.
working out for me. But,
Right.
like, I didn't play group sports. I didn't do that because I couldn't, like, everything about me just felt very different. Now I look back and I'm like, it all makes sense. Right.
Yes.
But it's hard when you feel like you don't understand what the energy is that you're in. And then, like you're describing, that moment where you're like, whoa,
Wait.
I feel better. And I think, like with the Lyme stuff, I mean, my body really tanked. In
Yeah.
my early 20s, like, my body tanked. And then, we didn't get diagnosis until many years later. And then I started to feel better from that. But then more heart stuff popped up. It was like one thing after another thing after another thing.
Right.
But I remember, after it was really after my second open heart surgery in 2018, where,
Uh,
as I healed from that surgery, because at that point I had been in remission from Lyme for a couple of years, but, then it was the heart, but then after my heart was fixed in that second surgery, there was definitely a huge energy shift where
mhm.
I knew I was ascending. Like, you're I find that our energy is kind of like in like a range.
Mhm, mhm.
and my range shifted, right? Like my worst mood, lowest frequency energy to my
Right.
highest, but all of a sudden it went, and my range just went with it.
Yes.
And my, like, and we call it vibration, like, oh,
Yeah. You're, yeah.
but like I could feel that my vibration was changing. My
Yes.
anxiety level went way down. Like
Mhm.
I really leaned into myself and dug within myself and started to understand, like, okay, I mean, now I'm 48, but it's like this was in my, look, 2018, so that was 6 years ago, right? So I was what, 42? Oh, 42, meaning of life, right? um,
Right.
but I really said, okay, how much longer am I going to think that there's something wrong, different, strange with me?
Me.
And right, I just got to lean into it and own it,
Yeah.
because clearly I'm not going anywhere, right? So it's like, I've got to lean into that, and I've just got to
Right.
appreciate who I am. And then
Right.
that's when language really, really started to change. And it's interesting, and maybe you've seen this too, like the universe brings you the people who need the
Absolutely.
medicine that you have.
That. Yes.
And those people started to change. And when we have businesses, like healing businesses, right? Not that I ever want anybody to feel that they're a business, but
Right.
from a
Right.
from a
But it.
social construct,
Right.
we have to file paperwork and pay taxes and do all those things.
Right.
But when I started working with people, I was working with people who were just a little bit behind me on the path, right? And I was holding
Right.
the lantern and walking them through and saying, okay, this is how we can do this together to, like, get out of the woods.
Right.
And that's changed and shifted, and the universe continues to say, okay, you're not with that person anymore. Now you're with this
Exactly.
person who, their energy's gone way up. They're like, what is happening? What
Mm-hmm.
does ascension mean? What does
Yes.
elevation mean? What does leveling up mean?
Yes.
What does having those conversations with yourself look like? What does self-acceptance, self-love look like?
Look
What
like
does it feel like to shed yourself of those feelings
old
that made you
world.
feel terrible, those, that old conditioning? Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Well, here comes, as I'm
Yes.
doing the work, like, because now the vibration is up here. So
Mm-hmm.
now the universe has said, okay, so now everything is going to shift for you, right?
Right.
So now
Right.
that means, like, my clients are shifting, and some of them, they're still right behind me on that same path.
Right.
So
Right.
we're still together, but it's been such an interesting and beautiful
Journey.
experience, all of it. Yeah, I've loved
Yes.
it.
Do you feel like there is this connection between something happening with our health?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm
I'm
saying?
sorry, you did ask that too. Yeah, absolutely. I
It's
think I think that we very often pay attention to, if we have physical health, we
hmm
have wealth, right?
yes,
Health
right,
is wealth. We have that
right.
expression. And people are thinking physical health.
hmm
And I think when something happens with our physical health, they're usually, I've been trying to prove myself wrong and I haven't been able to do it yet, but
Same.
usually there is something emotional or energetic that's been going on for years
hmm
that is kind of got you from the inside, and it's
Yes,
hanging out there, and it's slowly turning itself into something physical.
physical. Correct.
So the
Yes,
clues have been there for years, and
right,
it can be that haunting comment that somebody makes, usually someone
right.
close to us. They say something
Yes,
horrific,
yes,
and it just torpedoes around in our brain and destroys our emotional health,
yes.
right? And we start measuring everything against that comment or
That.
that thing, right? And
Yes,
there goes our self-worth, there goes our self-love, right? And then we think we're not worthy, and then maybe we're
Yes.
feeling shame, and we know shame, like from a vibration standpoint, is the lowest human
Yes.
vibration, right?
Yes.
So all those things are inside of us, and up here comes physical stuff. And we don't pay attention until something physical is happening. Our body is saying, I have pain, I have extreme discomfort. Maybe we're not walking properly. Maybe we can't, breathe very well. Maybe
Right.
our throat is always, scratchy. It's when those things happen that people say, oh, I need help. And then you start to heal that. And then people get to the point where, like we've done, that so many times, right? And maybe this happened with you too. You'll
Hmm.
have people coming to you. Well, my doctor says there's nothing wrong. My blood work all checks out okay. I've had all these different scans. You know,
Hmm.
all the doctors are saying that I'm fine. Now they're telling me that I need to see a therapist because they can't figure out what's wrong with me. They won't say that, but they
Right.
just say everything's fine.
Right.
And then, so people are made to feel like they're
They're
crazy
crazy.
or it's all in
Exactly.
your head. And it's
Right.
like, well, it, no, I mean, I don't think anybody's crazy. There's reasons that we're having the feelings that we're having, but it's like, what else is going on? Let's talk
Right.
about, you know,
Yes.
energy. And that's why I said I love using Reiki energy work first, because it's
Yes.
like I can kind of look and see, like, okay, I can
Sure.
see what's going on with them, right? And
Right.
I do all my work virtually. So I'm
Yes.
just like, just sit and chill, if you want to like listen to some gentle music, take a nap, like just let me take a look and see what's going on. And then it's like, okay, well, we've got this, like, people that have a lot of self-worth issues typically have a lot of gut problems,
Yes.
right? They're not going to the bathroom on a good schedule. They have a
Right.
hard time digesting food. And then I'm like, okay, I'm seeing that, your solar plexus or your sacral, depending on where, is all out of whack, you
Right.
know, and when you're not digesting food well, part of it is that you're not digesting life well, right?
Exactly.
It's a
Yes.
processing problem. So,
Yes.
we start talking about that, and we get, and I'm not a therapist and I don't pretend to be, and I stay in my lane. So I'm talking about it from an energy
From an energy
perspective.
point. Yes.
But when I'm seeing this, I'll say, are you working with a talk therapist, right? And if they are, I'll say, you may want to mention to them that, you're having digestive problems, that you worked with an energy person. And I have therapists that send people to me because they're like, they can't talk about whatever this is. We start talking about it. I'm like, okay, go back to them and say, energetically, this is what's going on. And
Right.
then they can start talking and getting help with the processing of whatever some of these emotional things are,
Are.
right?
Exactly.
And then here we go. Like now we're on a new healing loop. And then as you heal through some of that, then they start having that ascension. So
Yes.
it's a very common, it starts with the physical, then we start, okay. And we have to do it in a way that feels kind of natural to
Natural.
people.
Yes.
Because if you say, well, if they come to me and they're, well, I don't feel good physically, this is going on and this is going on.
Hmm.
Sometimes if I start with, emotions, sometimes people aren't ready for that. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, well, let's see what we can do to help you feel physically better. And then we're going to start looking at root causes of
Right.
why, we have to take things kind of one step at a time. But
Right.
yes, I
Yes.
definitely think that for most people, the beginning of all of this is a physical thing.
Ailment thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
for sure.
Okay. Last thing that I wanted to talk about was you and your husband and how you guys got together and how did you share your experiences and gifts with one another? Like, what was that process like? And how did you know, like, oh, so you do this thing too and you have this thing? Like, what was that process like? Tell me.
Well, we met when we were 15 in high school.
What?
So we didn't date right away. We were friends for about 6 years before we started dating, but we were we were together a lot. Like we both had those same similar things where we were just different.
Right.
Did,
Yeah.
and we could have conversations like about things that were like, oh, this weird stuff happened to
This is
me,
weird. Yeah.
you know, like the one story, and I share it very openly now, but when I was a younger person, I sure didn't. But
Yeah.
my grandmother passed away when I was 11,
Mm-hmm.
and she passed away tragically. She was hit by a drunk driver. She had been in a coma, and my parents were like, it's too much for you to go to the hospital and see that. And because they did know that I was a very tender person. Like, I couldn't
Right.
handle a lot of scary stuff like that.
Right.
So I didn't get to say goodbye to her physical form.
Right.
And so when I was 11, she passed away. And not too long after she passed away, I woke up one night. My room was freezing cold,
Mm-hmm.
or so I thought. And I looked to the side of my bed, and her ghost was standing there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my, and I knew I had the presence of mind enough to know, like, I am seeing the spirit of my grandmother. Like, I knew that.
Right. Right.
I
Like,
didn't say anything because
right.
I was like,
Yes.
but I remember that night so vividly. When it's cold, it's hard to not blink a lot because your eyes start
Your
to
eyes.
dry.
Yeah.
And I was literally trying
Right.
to
Like,
blink just one eye at a
so you
time,
could so you could still see what was
because I knew that if I blinked, she might be gone. And
right.
that's what happened. I eventually had to blink because my eyes were trying so desperately to keep
Right.
watered. Um, and so I shared that with my husband. He's known that story for many years. And he was like, oh, I've had things too. So we were like each other's confidant. Um,
Oh,
but we would hike
cute.
together and do all these things together. And then when I was 21, like, we smartened up, and we were like, we should just be together. But but we both, our health started kind of falling apart around the same time. So, and they are studying, the fact that Lyme disease being sexually transmitted, like,
Right.
there's not a lot of documented cases, but a lot of doctors that treat it, they kind of know, like, it's a sexually transmitted thing.
Yeah.
And we were falling apart with our health. And so we really kind of went that whole journey that I just described, right, with the physical stuff, and we went through that journey
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. See,
And
that's
it,
insane.
yeah, yeah. So now, um, when when we started working with clients, like, it's just, he has a really beautiful way of connecting with um, both the masculine and feminine energy. So,
Okay.
I think that people that need positive experiences with masculine energy tend to feel very comfortable with him,
Okay.
because he's very good at tapping into both sides of that. He's a very gentle person.
Gentle soul. Yeah.
Yeah, very gentle. And so people really connect to that with him. And so, between the two of us, we've got something to help just about everyone out there, if they lean into this work. So,
Choose.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing and so
Yeah.
cute. You guys are like the new age Ed and Lorraine, what's it, Warrens? That's what you guys are like.
Yeah.
That's so cute. You like incarnated with your almost kind of like twin. That's insane.
Yeah. We've done some past life work, and, like, we've definitely been together in
Absolutely.
multiple lives, like,
Absolutely.
and we're at the point in, and I don't know if this is because our souls have been together for so long, or we've been married so long at this point, because, like, we just had our 26th year anniversary of being married. um, but now it's like we'll be sitting there watching something, and I'll think something, and he'll
And
say,
he'll
I
hear it.
he's like, oh, same.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
if anybody looked at us, they'd be like, you two are nuts. But,
What's,
like,
what is this?
we
Yes.
know what
Yeah.
each other, or there's been times where I can't think of somebody's name, and I'll say
You
to
know?
him, I'm going to beam their face to you. And
Hmm.
he'll be like, oh, that's so and so. And I'm like,
Yes.
yes, that's who it
Yes.
is. Like,
Yes.
we just have a shorthand with each other, like on an energy level and just that soul level,
So
that it's like we're so connected.
yeah,
So,
like that's
yeah.
my that's one of my specialties is like being able to see people's relationship core,
Uh
you
huh.
know, and you guys do. You guys have this very, very long standing thread that's
Uh huh.
connected to you. Like it is a very past life, multiple past life. So, I mean, it's a thick thread too, is what I'm saying. Like
Oh my
it's
gosh. Okay, you're the second person to say that. So years ago, so when we were studying to be Reiki masters, we went through an intense program. Like it wasn't one of those level 1 on Saturday, level 2 on Sunday. It wasn't one of those deals. It was, two, because it was important for us to go through a program that wasn't doing cultural appropriation, right? We wanted to make sure that
right.
we were honoring the practice, and because originally the practice is from Japan and they're very protective of it.
Yes.
um, it was two people that we learned from. They were best friends, and the man was married to a woman who was from Japan and carried those traditions through. Like it was very important for us to have a really good, strong program that, not just trying to learn it to get it on our certificate or whatever.
Right.
But we had to, part of what the program did was we had to go to Reiki shares, and we also had to work at a Reiki clinic that they put on once a month. To
What is a share?
A share is when Reiki practitioners get together
Hmm.
and just practice.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that they can, keep their vibration nice and high. And we would be observed to make sure that like hand positions like were traditional and the whole thing.
Hmm.
But but one time we were able to go together, because typically, because they had him twice a month, I would go to one, he would go to the other, because one of us would be home with our son.
Right.
And we were able to go together one time, and our Reiki masters were like, anybody who is working with Amanda and Chris, don't even bother touching that big cord that they have between them, because you will never break it.
You'll never,
And
never,
we were like, nope,
never,
never break it.
never. Not like I said. Like I waited. Obviously, I kept it to the end because it's this is its whole a whole nother conversation, right? But I I saw it very prevalently. It's a
Uh
chunk.
huh.
I mean, it's chunky. It's
Yeah.
a chunky. It's kind of like what they. Thank you. It's the what they use for ships. You know, to anchor. You
When you
know,
just said thank you, did you see what I was beaming you? I was beaming you a picture.
yeah. So it's a
I was saying it's a rope that holds a cruise ship on the dock.
yes.
Yeah, the big
It's
one.
the big one,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, which is why I said it.
you're my
See?
girl. I love it. I feel some collaboration coming.
Man, absolutely. Because like
Uh,
I'm like that was I'm like we did that effortlessly.
we did.
We did that effortlessly, and it's not even that, like it was your like I saw your spirit self give it to me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's how
it's
I
cool.
roll.
That's cool. That was cool. Anyway, but yeah, you guys have a phenomenal and it's not one of those weird like killer couple relationships in past lives where one past life it was like a terror. It's consecutively been amazing. Like
Yeah,
every lifetime.
yeah.
That's insane.
Well, I don't know what the technical terms are for these things. My husband and I made up our own language for some of it, but
Mhm.
we call them soul clusters.
Yes.
Like, we believe that there are people's souls who are just meant to find each other. And
Yeah.
so I always imagine, like, I mean, I do believe in God. And so, I always imagine God, like, the game Yahtzee with all the
Yes.
dice in a cup.
With all the
I
guys.
believe he's up there with our souls, and then he goes, psh, and he
Yeah.
shoots them all out. And
Yeah.
we slowly find each other,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, we've always said, like, there's no doubt that like we keep ending up in the same Yahtzee
Exactly.
cup, right? Every time we're in a
Exactly.
very strong soul cluster. And we've met, especially because we grew up in New England, and then we
Okay.
moved to Southern California. And we've met other people here in Southern California that we were like, ooh, they feel like their energy feels familiar. Like we
Yes.
feel like we're in a soul cluster. There's people here that we feel like we're in a soul cluster with.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, a lot of people in Southern California, right? They call California's the land of fruits and nuts. There's that joke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, number one, like I am in the right place. This is like I feel very in tune with the energy of
Yes.
Southern California. But I have found that when it comes to people's energy, there's a lot of people here who are seekers and
Mm-hmm.
they
Yes.
know the language, right?
Yes.
Like, if you threw a rock down a street in San Diego, you'd probably hit 20 yoga people, Reiki people, past life regression people,
Yeah.
oracle card readers. Like,
Yes.
it just it's a lot here. Now
Yeah.
it's funny because there's a group that I moderate a support group for people with Lyme disease, and
Uh-huh.
it's a group in Northern California, and it's just funny because like they're a little more serious up there. So it's like
Oh,
when I'm moderating the north, like, and I also moderate a Southern California group, and they're a little bit more like into this
lenient.
kind of thing. I'm a little more gentle with what I talk about with my Northern California group because I'm like, I don't know if they'll be able to,
I don't know
I
if
don't
they're
know if
gonna.
they'll lean into this language. So, I'm teaching them, like, let's talk about EFT tapping, right? It's like more of that conventional, more comfortable
That.
stuff, but it's
Oh.
like, read the room.
Yes. So every time you have to post with them, you have to do
What are
the
people ready for?
yes, yeah. Let me tap in real quick and see how much of this can they handle because oh no, it's
Right?
that big of a difference. Like you can feel it. It's that big of a difference.
You can feel, oh, yeah. Like
Oh,
talking about this stuff, like when at the time I lived in New England,
hmm.
people didn't talk about this stuff. People are out there,
Right.
but you don't hear about this stuff. It's very conventional,
Yes.
very a lot of conservative feelings about this sort of thing. So it's
Why is that?
I just think it's you know when you think about how people are brought up and
Oh,
you know
right.
how traditions are and
Yes.
like if you think about how the different parts of the country were colon- colonized. I mean, there's no better word for it, but
That.
like
Right.
in New England, it was people that were escaping religious persecution from
Right.
Europe, which is how that part of the country was settled. So that's like steeped
Steep.
in
Yeah.
that kind of thing where you think about California, it was colonized by people that were migrating across the country
Right.
to, they were adventurous, they were, gold and all of the, and we know that there were atrocities that went along with that. But like you think about the spirit, like people were, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm going to go across the country and I'm going to try this out. And
Yes.
that's the way I think about, like when I think about the different parts of the country, like how are they settled, right? And
Yes.
that makes people think and feel different about
Hmm.
things and maybe be more open or more, a little bit more discerning before
Right.
leaning into certain things. It just depends what was going on.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that but definitely for the soul cluster thing, it's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen Sailor Moon, but they always reincarnate with each other every
Uh-huh.
time. All of the Sailor Guardians always incarnate with each
Oh,
other
that's the
every
anime. There's an anime show, right? Sailor
yes,
Moon is an anime.
Sailor Moon.
I've
Yes.
never watched it, but oh, now
Yeah.
I'm
Now
curious.
you have to. Now you have to.
Yeah.
There's one on Netflix that not just came out. I think it came out last year, and it's just a two-part movie. You have to watch it. It's literally about exactly this, where
Mm.
it was a different lifetime, but all of the Sailor Guardians, even the Outer Guardians, came back and they reincarnated each and every time with each other, and
Interesting.
they would always find each other no matter where or how far scattered they were, they would always come back with each other.
Love it. Huh.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yes.
check that out.
Yes. So this is definitely I think we said this when we were emailing. Like I was like, maybe we're I was like, you feel familiar. Like this seems familiar. And you're like, maybe we're part of the same soul cluster. And like,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
for
it could
sure.
be.
After that, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
All right, well, Amanda, I'm gonna let you go. But this has been amazing, and obviously there has to be like another time we have to do this again.
I
This
would
has
love
been
to.
this has been amazing. Like we literally just had a full telepathic situation
We did.
on video, so like we know it happened.
Uh-huh. I
All right,
know. I have a joke like you can't make this ish up,
you can't
but
make this up.
you can't make it up.
You
Like there are
can't.
things that happen when you live in this world, and it's like
Exactly.
I just hope that I never stop being amazed when it happens. Like I'm
Amazed.
still always like, "What? It's so
What
awesome that
just
that just happened."
happened? Literally, that was literally me. I was like,
Uh,
that just
uh-huh.
happened.
Right?
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes,
Oh, excellent. Well,
yes,
thank you so much for having me. And if it's okay to say, if anybody wants to connect with me, I'm
yes.
on all the social medias. My handle is Dahl Holistic Health. And then my website is Dahl Holistic Health. And, if you want to send me a personal message, you can do that through social or on my website. There's a contact me form. I'm the one that gets it, and I really do respond to people. So,
Which is a
um,
big deal.
yeah.
Yes,
Well,
which is a
sometimes,
big deal.
you do those, there's like that form on somebody's
Yeah,
website and you send
and
a
nobody
message
gets
and you
it.
never hear. It's
Literally,
like,
and
nope,
nobody gets it.
mine works and I do respond.
Just so everyone knows.
Yes.
Yes, please get in contact with Amanda if you are in need of any of the things that she does, because as you can see, she is amazing. She's super easy to talk to, very well endowed and versed in all the things that she does. She knows what she's doing. Great energy. Please hit
Thank
her up if
you.
you need anything.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for being a part of this and thank you for connecting with me. And we've got to stay in touch.
Yes, for sure. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.